you're a painter, you're a photographer, or whatever, share that progress, share the behind the scenes. People actually love to see how the sausage is made. Progress beats perfection hands down every day. Get feedback early so you can adapt, right? But also sharing your work, it fosters connections by showing vulnerability in your creative journey, right? If I digitally show up consistently, then I psychologically live in your mind. If the camera is the paintbrush, then the light is the paint, right? So you're making an image using the tool of the camera, but the medium is light. So it's all about light. If you're watching this and you're an artist, you're a photographer, I want you to say to yourself, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a small business owner. Like, just say it to yourself. I'm a small business owner, right? Because that's exactly what you are. Repeat relentlessly. Repeat relentlessly. It doesn't mean do the same thing over and over again. What it means is be consistent. Consistency beats talent every day. You don't need permission to be an artist. You don't get permission from an institution, a school, a gallery, right? You have to take ownership and give yourself permission to be a creative artist and to fully understand what that means. Hey everyone, welcome to the ArtLens Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Gathro, and today I'm going to be sharing with you 5 lessons that I've learned in my 15 years as a professional artist and photographer. Now, if you're an artist or photographer wanting to grow your career, don't stop this video. Keep listening because you don't want to make these same mistakes. Now, as I've thought about this, I put this into a 5-part framework to help us understand and unpack all these important lessons and principles. So it's O.W.N.E.R, owner. You want to have ownership. You want to work in progress, nurture the business, engage light and vision, and repeat relentlessly. Now, I do have a couple little notes and bullet points here that I'll be referring to just to make sure that I stay on track with all the thoughts that I put together for you today. So let's jump in. The first lesson that I want to talk about for just a second is ownership. Meaning you don't need permission to be an artist. You don't get permission from an institution, a school, a gallery, right? You have to take ownership and give yourself permission to be a creative artist and to fully understand what that means. So, I used to think when I was a young artist starting out, meaning I was a teenager in high school, I used to think if I could get into the best schools, the rest would be taken care of, meaning that my career would just sort of work itself out. And that's very false, right? The truth is that no school or institution is going to build your career for you, right? So let me tell you a little story. I was in high school and I first found out about this school called the Cooper Union School of Art. It's located in New York City. It's a very prestigious art school. They're highly selective because at the time they were giving full tuition scholarships for those who got accepted. They only accepted 60 students a year. And as I looked into it, a lot of big name artists came out of the Cooper Union, and the Cooper Union was a feeder school into Yale School of Art. And a lot of big artists had come out of Yale School of Art. And so for me as a high school kid, as a teenager, I thought that's my path, right? I'm going to go to Cooper Union, then I'm going to go to Yale School of Art, and that's it. And then my career will be made, right? But the reality is that it doesn't matter where you go. You could go to Rhode Island School of Design, Art Institute of Chicago, Maryland Institute College of Art, the Cooper Union, the School of Visual Arts, Pratt. It doesn't matter. There's you could go to schools anywhere in the world or the country. They're not going to hand you a career, right? It's just not going to happen. No institution will build your career for you. Now, let me fast forward just a little bit. When I got accepted to the Cooper Union, I'm going to school there, and I had a really good friend of mine who, his name was O.W.N.E.R. And if you follow the art world, you would know his name. He's been very successful in his career, and he and I were great friends in college. And his studio was right next to my studio. And I remember one day he had a friend come over. Now, we entered together as freshmen, but then I took 2 years, a leave of absence from college, from art school, and became a missionary for my church for 2 years. And so when I came back from my missionary work, I was a sophomore in college, and he was a senior because he had continued on. But our studios were right next to each other. And AWOL had a friend come over. Right? I had never seen her before. I didn't think she was a student at the school, but she looked fairly young, maybe a couple years older than us, maybe 24, 25. And I went over and we started chatting. AWOL introduced me to her, and AWOL, then I quickly found out she was a curator. She told me she was a curator, and she was looking at some of AWOL's work. And AWOL says, hey, you should look at some of Tyler's work. Tyler's a great artist too. And she says, yeah, I'd love to see some of your work. What do you have to show me? And I kind of froze. And I thought to myself, I don't really have anything to show you, right? I was caught off guard. Now, here's as I've reflected on that, here's the lesson I've learned. I wasn't rejected. I was simply unprepared for taking on the role of an artist. I wasn't owning the role, the responsibilities of being an artist. See, in my mind, it was a mindset shift. See, in my mind, as a young 21-year-old kid, I'm a young adult, but I'm 21 years old. As a young kid, I was thinking, I'm in school and therefore I'm a student. But my friend AWOL, his mind was, I'm in school, but I'm also an artist, right? And so he was already, while being a student, he was already in conversations with curators. He was already thinking about what does it mean to be an artist, and he had adapted this mindset of being an artist, whereas I hadn't fully done that yet, right? I was still in a student mindset, not fully owning what it even meant to be an artist. So here's the truth. The truth is no one gives you permission, right? If you're out of school and you're waiting for gallery representation to be an artist or to take yourself seriously, that it's not going to happen, right? You've got to take yourself seriously now. You have to take on the mindset that, look, no institution, school, curator, gallery, they're not the ones that are going to give you like a rite of passage or permission. You have to own it and give yourself permission. And that ownership, that beats validation any day, right? The validation from a gallery, the validation that I received from going to Yale or going to Cooper Union, no, ownership beats that every day. So key takeaway, stop waiting to be chosen and start acting like the professional that you want to be. Be a professional today and stop waiting. So ownership, that's number one. Do you want to build a marketable fine art portfolio? You've been taking photos, maybe you've been experimenting or doing some client work, taking some portraits of people, but you don't just want to get better looking images. You want more cohesive, meaningful work that actually aligns with your vision. Work that is worthy to be shared, exhibited, even collected. Well, if that's you, I want to invite you to a live one-on-one art portfolio accelerator for artists and photographers who are ready to take their work seriously and take it to the next level. If that's you, go ahead and click the link below in the description and you can get more information and sign up for a live one-on-one working experience with me where I can help you build your marketable fine art portfolio. Now let's get back to the convo. Second lesson that I've learned in the past 15 years that I think is worth all of us thinking about here, and that is work in progress, right? You are a work in progress. People want to see a work in progress. In fact, progress beats perfection hands down every day, right? We can't wait around for something to be perfect. We have to put our stuff out there in progress. Share with people early, right? When you start a new artwork, start sharing with them early on. Stay visible, make yourself seen, let the process be seen, and adapt as you go. Now, I've got some stories that I want to share that'll kind of go with this because early on in my career, I definitely kind of held back. I waited until my ideas were ready, right? And I will note, along with this, I think a lot of that came from me working alone, right? When we do not have a team of people, when there's not somebody else, even just one other person, a friend, a spouse, when we don't have somebody else who we could share ideas with and we can collaborate and work with, we often get stuck in our heads about what we think is perfect or right or ready. And I know for me, that's definitely been something that has happened to me over the years where I've gotten stuck in my head and thinking, when I get to this point, it will be ready to share, or when it's at this point, it will be perfect and then it'll be finished, right? Again, I said I had a couple stories. I want to share a couple stories with this. First of all, I used to hate posting on social media, and I still don't entirely enjoy it, but I have come to learn and understand the value of it, of posting online in different forms. Sharing builds connection. One of my coaches, one of my mentors, his name is O.W.N.E.R. If you know him, he's got a big YouTube presence, and he's a great coach, great guy. I've worked with him in person. He said something to me that has really stuck with me. He says, if I show up digitally, right? If I digitally show up consistently, then I psychologically live in your mind. Okay, think about that. If I digitally show up consistently, I'm showing up on YouTube or in your emails or on Instagram or wherever consistently, then I'm going to psychologically live in your mind. You're going to remember my name, right? That's one thing. And here's why I say it, because when it comes to a work in progress, share your progress online, right? Share the progress you're making. Share the lessons you're learning, right? If you're a painter, you're a photographer or whatever, share that progress. Share the behind the scenes. People actually love to see how the sausage is made, right? And sharing will build connection, and that will actually build your business, which we'll get into the next one. But I wanted to share that thought from my coach, O.W.N.E.R. Now, if you can get people around you, right? If you can have a spouse or a friend kind of to bounce ideas off of, you can get feedback early, right? And if you don't get feedback early, then you can start getting lost. You can be climbing a ladder and you're working. And when you reach the top, you can run into the mistake of realizing that the ladder is up against the wrong wall. And you're like, wait a minute, I'm up against this wall. I needed to be on that building and up against that wall. And you're going in the wrong direction. Let me share with you a story to illustrate this. After I graduated from college, from the Cooper Union in New York City, I decided I wanted to be a documentary photographer, mostly because I was fascinated with culture. I was fascinated with the world and people and traveling, and I wanted to travel the world as a photographer. So I spent 2 years in the Middle East as a documentary photographer. And I did lots of things. I had, I worked with a lot of NGOs and was hired on to do different work, but I also had my own personal sort of passion projects. And one of my projects was what I called the Living Stones. It was about the life and faith of Arab Christians in these Islamic and Jewish states. And it was a long-term, like year-long project. And my idea was, I'm going to make a documentary film. I'm going to publish a book, right? I'm going to have an exhibition. I mean, it was like this grand vision, which was awesome, right? Not a bad thing. However, because I did not really work with a lot of people on this, it was very much a solo project, and I didn't share early in the process. I wasn't posting online. I wasn't starting out by trying to reach out to galleries. Here's what happened. I actually finished a whole year of work, edited a body of work, then laid out a book and created a book. Like I designed and printed a one copy, sort of a dummy book. And I do have a copy of one of the books right here. It's this book, right? So I actually made a book. Then after the project was completely finished, what I thought in my mind was perfect, right? I thought it was ready. After I had this, I then took a workshop at the ICP, the International Center of Photography in downtown Manhattan in New York City. And it was all about working with book publishers and getting your photo book published into the world. And the instructor of this workshop, it was a 3-day workshop. The instructor was Alexa Beaker, and she was the acquisitions editor for I'm going to pronounce it incorrectly, I think, Kira Verlag, which is a international publisher based in Germany. They publish art and photo books, and she was the acquisitions editor for a long time for that book publishing company. So she came to New York and put on this workshop. And as we sat down and she looked at my project, she went through the book, I learned a valuable lesson. And that was, there was a lot of mistakes I had made. This book was not something that most of the publishers that she had known or she had worked with that I was interested in were going to pick up. Because I needed to like scrap a lot of this and start over in a different direction. The project was interesting. The photos were great, but the direction I was headed, it was as if I climbed a ladder that was leaning against another wall, right? I found myself in a whole different path, and I needed to be over here. And in the end, I decided just to self-publish, and it wasn't as successful as I was hoping it would be. I still have this book. I'm proud of the work that I did, right? I have a documentary film along with it and things, and it was an incredible learning experience and a joy to work on. But it was a moment for me when I realized, because I didn't share my process, and because I didn't share early, and because I didn't collaborate with others early on, I was up against the wrong wall. I was going the opposite direction, and what I thought was perfect, what I thought was ready, was not really. And so maybe it's a long way to say this, and that is, sharing work that's in progress, it helps to build community. That's one. It provides accountability, right? When you say, hey, I'm doing this thing, and you put that out in the world, people are going to ask you. They're going to say, hey, how's that thing coming along, right? And you're accountable. It helps you improve through feedback, which is exactly the problem that I had with this book. I wasn't getting the feedback early on, right? I waited until it was finished to try to get some feedback. And that's the wrong way to go. You get feedback early so you can adapt, right? But also, sharing your work, it fosters connections by showing vulnerability in your creative journey, right? Meaning, if you show how the sausage is being made, people are going to respect that. They're going to see, wow, like this artist is being vulnerable and they're showing me the behind the scenes and how this is being made. And people are going to gravitate to it. They're going to love it, especially in this day of age with AI, right? Showing how something is made, showing your progress, it gives validity. It gives you, credibility. It shows that you're authentic. So anyway, I could go on and on. People don't always fall in love with the finished work right away. Really, they fall in love with you as the artist. They fall in love with your growth. They fall in love with the behind the scenes. So that's one of the major lessons that I have learned over the years is share your work online, get your work out there early, get feedback. Don't just be stuck in your head working alone in your studio and thinking when it's ready, then I'll share it. So that's lesson number 2. Okay, moving on. Third lesson that I have learned in my 15 years as a professional artist and photographer, and that is nurture the business. Nurture the business. Art is entrepreneurship. Art is entrepreneurship. You have to nurture the business. We need to be able to tell our stories. That's marketing. We have to price our work. We have to make a living. We have to pay the bills. Hey guys, when it comes to fine art photography, we know that gear is not everything. However, if you want to have the best looking images, you need to have great quality gear. So I've put together a free gear guide just for you. It has my top recommendations for cameras, lenses, lights, and a lot more. It is a live document. I try to keep it updated as new technologies come out. All you have to do is click the link below in the description to download the free gear guide just for you. Hopefully it helps. Now let's get back to the conversation. When I was younger, like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, early 20s, mid 20s, I definitely had a mindset where I used to think, I'm a creative, I'm not a business person. And I don't know if you guys think that, but I certainly did, right? I used to think, I can't do business. I'm not a business person, right? I make images, I make art, but trying to sell that art, that was a whole different mindset shift for me, and it was hard. And I always just thought, if I can get a gallery to do that for me, that would be great. Like, I'll let the galleries take care of the business part because I'm not a businessman. I'm an artist. I used to even assume, and maybe this is because of some of the roommates that I had in college and as a young guy living in New York, but I used to assume that people who were entrepreneurs were in finance or engineers or were in retail or they were in other industries besides art, besides the creative arts. And that's false, right? Entrepreneurship is in a wide variety of industries. And here's what I've learned. After all my years, mostly in my 20s, doing side hustles, working 9 to 5, W-2 jobs, trying to create work in a small side room in my apartment or my house, I eventually realized I'm not taking this seriously. This is not really a business. And if you can't pay your bills, you can't create. If you can't pay your bills, you can't create, right? You need to be able to sustain yourself. Artists are entrepreneurs, whether you want to admit it or not. So I want you, if you're watching this and you're an artist or you're a photographer, I want you to say to yourself, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a small business owner. Like, just say it. Say it to yourself. I'm a small business owner, right? Because that's exactly what you are. Now, you can certainly have a broker, right? You can certainly have a gallery to represent you, to take care of a lot of the business sides, but you you're in it as well. Like, you're a partner with the gallery. You are, they're just helping you with the business, right? So I don't have a specific event where everything just shifted and my mind opened. It was a little bit more gradual, but I eventually realized I can't keep doing this. And so I ended up building a larger studio. It's a studio that I'm in right now. I registered this as an LLC. I created a working schedule for myself that I'm accountable to that schedule, right? And I stick to a working schedule. Now, as many of those watching and listening maybe you know this, maybe you don't, but I also am a professor. So I do have a W-2 job. I work as an educator and I teach. And I love it. I do genuinely love educating and helping other artists and photographers grow in their careers. And so I balance that W-2 job with my own business, right? But I take my business seriously. My studio practice is not just that. It's not just me making art and hoping that the gods will somehow magically be able to sell my work for me. So your studio is a small business. And marketing. Marketing is simply telling your story. If you feel like I don't know marketing, I'm not a good marketer, it's simply sharing your story. Sharing how you make the work, why you make the work. The more that you can tell your story about who you are, what your work's about, sharing how you make it, that's your marketing, right? Sharing your story. So a couple key takeaways. Treat your practice like a business if you want it to survive like one. And, as I kind of was thinking about this a lot more in preparation for this, any of you who are business gurus and love listening to podcasts or people online, I definitely follow Russell Brunson and Daniel Priestley and Alex Hormozi. And again, I mentioned I have my coach, O.W.N.E.R. There's a lot of these kind of coaches and business people online. And as you look at the way in which they define what constitutes a business, right? And you kind of internalize all this, you'll start to learn that a business is simply an offer, right? Or product. Well, we as artists make a product. Our artwork, you need to think of your artwork as a product, right? But it's something of value that either solves a problem for someone or fulfills a real desire, right? Maybe your artwork doesn't solve a problem, but it fulfills a desire. And so you have a product that fulfills a desire, right? You need a system and not just a one-off sale, right? But a repeatable process. If you sold one work of art last year and one work of art the year before that, you don't have a business. You need a repeatable system where you can be making sales consistently. And then attention and trust, right? People must know you. They must like you. They have to trust you. And the way they're going to trust you and get to know you is showing up consistently online primarily, right? Like, not just online, but in person. Like, take part in gallery walks or open studio days, right? Go to the museum exhibition openings, and if there's a networking event of artists or photographers, go to those, right? Be present. So showing up consistently will help people know you and like you and trust you. You need that for business. Delivery of value, right? The promise must be fulfilled consistently. If you say you're going to do something, you got to do it, and do it consistently, right? Sustainability. So your time, energy, money, it must be replenished. If you cannot replenish the money, do you really have a business, right? You invest some money into materials and you invest time to make the product. You make this image. Can you replenish that? Can you get it back and more so you can make more images? And then growth of leverage. Like, the business can't depend entirely on just one moment or one sale. I should make this into a whole. I should make this into a whole other podcast. We should do that. We should do another episode just on business. But I wrote this down. I want to read this and leave you with this little thought here. And that is, for a visual artist, a business is a living ecosystem built around their creative practice. It includes the work they make, the problems or desires it serves, the trust they build through visibility and honesty, and the systems that allow that value to be exchanged for money in a way that sustains both the artist and the audience. So, that's the third lesson I've learned, right? Nurture the business. Nurture the business. I wish I had learned that way earlier on. Going back to my friend Awal Arisku, I think when he was a student at the Cooper Union, when we were students together, he and I, he had already sort of started to understand that, right? He was already nurturing the business of art making. And my mindset wasn't quite there yet. And it took me a few more years to get that. So, number 4. Fourth lesson that I've learned in the past 15 years as a professional artist and photographer, and that is engage light and vision. Right? Engage light and vision. Craft matters, right? We have to learn the language of light. In fact, the word photography itself, like if you break the word photography down, photo means light, graphy means drawing. A photograph is literally a light drawing, right? You can take a pencil and a piece of paper and you can make a drawing with a pencil, right? Make an image. You can make an image with a pencil. You can make an image with a paintbrush, or you can make an image with this tool called a camera, right? And using light as your medium, right? If the camera is the paintbrush, then the light is the paint, right? Paint is the medium. Well, light's your medium. So you're making an image using the tool of the camera, but the medium is light. So it's all about light. I did not know this early on, right? And I say early on, meaning when I first, like as a college student and very early on. I came from a background of drawing, painting, printmaking, graphic design. And when I got into photography, there was talk of light, but it didn't fully stick into my head. I didn't quite catch on. So some of my early mistakes, in fact, I'll put up some images here of some early photos from when I was in college. Some of my early mistakes were I focused a lot on the subject, the location, the concept, the ideas, right? But not so much on the light. And what ended up happening was that my images fell flat, right? My images would fall flat. And so even though I had strong ideas, right? I could produce a powerful image, but the lighting wasn't always great. And so I quickly caught on to that. And what ended up happening was, I learned that light can shape emotion. That when you have a clear vision of how to use the light, it can evoke meaning. Really, when you can hone in on the craft, you can amplify the message. So I'm not a gear guru, nor do I advocate for gear, right? Like, I love listening to some guys like Jared Polin, right? Frono's Photo on YouTube. I love listening to guys like that sometimes and learning about new gear and comparing cameras or lenses. Like, that's fun. But that's not what's going to sell your work, and that's not what's going to make your images powerful, right? If you focus on light and vision, that's gonna really amplify your work, right? So light is not a light is not just a technical detail. Maybe that's a good way to say it. Light is not just a technical detail. It is the very essence in which photographs are made. And if we compare like my images from some of my early photographs from college to some of my most recent work, you can see a big difference in the way in which I'm using light to help tell the story. And so for those of you who are beginner photographers, those of you who are new, if you're listening to this, my encouragement to you is to understand that the medium in which you are using is light, and you need to learn how to use light to tell the story, how to manipulate and create light and all the above, because that's going to really change the language of your photographs. Okay, last lesson, fifth lesson here. That, as I've thought about this, these are 5 lessons that I've learned in my 15 years as a photographer. So the last one is repeat relentlessly. Repeat relentlessly. That doesn't mean do the same thing over and over again. What it means is be consistent. Be consistent, right? Consistency beats talent every day. I know some incredibly talented people who are not always consistent, not always showing up every day, and they're missing out. They're missing out on opportunities. They're missing out on growth. It's those who are consistent and showing up all the time that are taking hold of opportunity. Opportunities are coming their way, right? In fact, I'll share this. I used to get distracted by a lot of different things, and I used to think, if I just make this one big piece, this big piece can kind of carry me through. But I have come to learn that you got to show up even when you're bored. In fact, I'll just tell you right now, I'm filming this video that you're watching right now. I'm filming this at a time I didn't want to film it. It's late at night. I'm tired. I've got 3 little kids. I've got a 1-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 7-year-old. And after a day with wrangling 3 little kids, you get tired, right? If for any of you who are parents, shout out to all the parents watching this video right now. But I told myself I was going to film this episode today. I wanted to get this filmed today. And of course, my studio is my entire basement, right? And up above me, is my living room. And I've got 3 little kids, and they're running around and screaming and yelling, and things happen, and it gets noisy and loud. So I don't like to film during the day because the audio is not great. So I wanted to film it. I needed to film it in the evening or late at night after the kids go to bed. But I'm tired and I don't want to show up. But I told myself, no, I'm going to do it, right? Here, the question for you is, are you going to show up? Are you going to be consistent, right? Are you going to repeat relentlessly? Right? You got to be relentless about this, because inspiration is not what's going to carry you, right? It's showing up and doing the work. You got to do the work. It's those small repeated efforts, right? And when you do that over a long period of time, people will begin to trust you. They know, like, hey, this guy's prolific. This guy's creating. This guy's working, right? Talent may open the doors, but consistency keeps those doors open, right? You may be talented, and that opens a door for you. But if you're not consistent, that door's going to shut, right? You want the doors to stay open and for opportunities to keep flowing, you got to be consistent, right? In fact, I wrote down something here that I think is kind of nice. I said, people begin to trust you when you keep your word. This is actually a conversation that Omar Altakori and I had gone through, right? You begin to trust yourself when you keep your word. Do you trust yourself? If you don't, it's probably because you haven't always kept your word, right? Something to think about. I think particularly with, this is a brand new year. I'm filming this right now on, January 3rd. It's January 3rd, 2026 at the time of filming. It's a brand new year. What goals do you have? What commitments have you set for yourself? Are you going to show up this year? Are you going to be consistent this year? Just again, another little plug. If you want consistency, maybe you need accountability, right? Go ahead and sign up for my 3-day working intensive, right? Link below, right? Putting that out there, right? And I can help you be consistent. There's a great book. I read it a few years ago. It's obviously wildly famous, Atomic Habits. Shout out to James Clear, right? And also James Clear just recently, like a month or two ago, I think it was, he was on the Diary of a CEO podcast. Awesome episode. You should listen to that. But James Clear, right? Atomic Habits. So are you creating habits so you can be relentless in your commitment to show up? Okay. What are your habits like? Maybe you need to develop some new habits this year to show up constantly, right? It's late at night. I didn't want to be doing this right now because I was tired, but I'm here because I value myself. I trust myself. I'm committed to my word, keeping my word. I want to show up for you, right? I want to share these incredible lessons that I've learned with all of you. So, key takeaway here is your career is not built on those extraordinary moments, really. It's built on the ordinary days. Day in, day out, are you going to be consistent showing up? That's what it is. So, O.W.N.E.R, right? O.W.N.E.R. Are you going to take ownership this year in your work? Are you going to own being an artist? Are you going to share your work in progress? Are you going to nurture the business? Because every artist is an entrepreneur. Are you going to really learn more about light and vision this year, right? And not just focus on the gear and the technical aspects, but are you going to move your work forward? And then are you going to be consistent and relentless in your pursuits? I hope this was helpful for you. Again, these were just some of the main lessons that I've learned as a professional artist and photographer for the past 15 years, and I have loved helping other young artists and photographers. And I say young, that doesn't always mean young in age, right? It could be young in experience. I have, I've had students in the past who are retired and they're in their 60s, but they're young in photography. They're young in the arts, right? So wherever you are, I love helping young artists and photographers grow in their careers and in their craft. So if that's you, send me a message, send me a DM. And I'll just end with this, that you don't become a professional by being chosen. You become a professional by acting like an owner. And that's it. Peace out.